I start with following question, this one which is not leaving me. Can AI be dangerous for humankind? And now you can choose who wants to start with this one answering it.
You guys know my opinion. Yes, absolutely.
How?
Something as simple as AI DAOs could steal all of our resources. So that's a concern right there.
Okay,
there's much simpler things.
We know your theory, we have heard it. Let's take outside of the theory, without the DAO. Right. We see it with deep learning and so forth. What is the scenario? I mean, Stephen Hawking is warning for it. Elon Musk is warning. Bill Gates. These are very smart, successful people who have a lot of insights, and they say AI is the biggest threat for humankind. That's why they invest into it, to understand it better. I still try to understand why. Where is the threat coming out?
Well, I mean, if you look at it, I think in the previous talk we had this 3 Ps, right? So process and products. And one of the threats that is actually upcoming, and not just by super intelligence, right, is the thing around process automation, process intelligence, right? So we are taking a serious amount of people out of these processes going forward in the next 5 years, and this will have some severe challenges on our society, right? And the question is how you deal with that, rather than, okay, maybe there's in 20, 30 years some type of super intelligence and it's becoming this Terminator thing, right? These threats, so to say, that emerge from the shift in the leverage model that is upcoming or already ongoing are the ones that are going to impact us.
I agree.
Very
I think
close.
Technology companies today have the big challenge that they have to deal with the outcome of what has been done in the 80s in Hollywood. Right? So typically when people think about artificial intelligence, and at the moment many people are talking about artificial intelligence, and sometimes they're not talking about artificial intelligence, they may talk about subsets of artificial intelligence. That's the grand big scheme, artificial intelligence. And I think technology has just solved a tiny fraction of this. We also saw this in the talk from the DFKI, from the German Research Institute for Artificial Intelligence. There are many unsolved challenges. Many of the challenges to model intelligence, human intelligence, have not been able to be modeled at all yet. Not even. So it's not solved. It's a very open question, and I think for very specific applications, when we saw some of the examples on chess or Go or computer games, or image recognition, yes, some of the technology has surpassed what a human brain can do, but they only do it for a very specific, small and encapsulated task. And the challenge will be, and that's the same for every technology, it's a tool. Artificial intelligence, machine learning is a tool, and you can use many tools in a good sense or in a bad sense. And I think it's up to companies that use these tools to use them in a responsible way. And at some point there may be even questions where you have to ask, should a technology be used in every single way? And that's actually not a new problem. We see this in many industries. You see this in medicine, and think about genetics and how you apply some of the medical advances. Do you want to use them, or do you not want to use them? There may be some ethical questions. There may be some discriminatory questions. So there's a lot of questions that are asked. So,
I have a question for you. You're working for Google, and in my view, Google is the potential Skynet out there. Google has the most potential to blow up the world because they have currently the most resources and the most data dedicated to AI. So how is Google preventing it that even have good intentions? Because the guys who invented Skynet had good intentions too in all the movies, that their AI won't end up in a negative way harming humankind.
So we take a very optimistic view of things, and we also take a very transparent approach. So first of all, we share most of our work is shared. So all of our research work is shared. All of our technology can be accessed through programming interfaces. And we also engage in very deep conversations with the industry. So just 1.5 years ago, we were part of a consortium creation called the Alliance for Artificial Intelligence, where we partner with all technology partners such as Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and many others, to discuss some of the challenging questions that come with the development of new technologies in machine learning and artificial intelligence, because a lot of questions are not answered yet. So there's a lot of open questions, and I think you need to be actively engaging in conversations to start debating some of these questions and how you deal with them.
So Microsoft published a Twitter bot a while ago, which was used by the crowd out there to train it, and it turned sex, it was, I think, chauvinistic, so it didn't like women at the end, and it was pretty racism. Because the internet is not morally always correct, because when people can hide, yes, they have... The thing is, we saw as an example, if the crowd is educating in AI, how it can turn. In my slides, I mentioned that we can choose if we want to have an American or a Chinese system in our mind one day or at home. Danko spoke, I like his theory about AI kindergarten, that we need to raise them. So what are ways that we can make sure that the systems which are out there, if it's DAO or within Google or KPMG is running them out, that they represent the values first of the nation which we are, or the cultural barrier, but also as us as humans, so that they act in our interest, but also that they act in the interest of the people who live in this, who are the user.
I mean, I think that's really an interesting question, and it boils a lot down to some classical old school means of having your processes right and having your controls in place, right? So as said, I mean, the good old term, shit in, shit out, right? So if you train an AI just with bogus data, it will just learn bogus results, right? And you can actually train it to do bad things because it's actually not intelligent, right? So and that's the point.
So, I think actually I'm going to strongly disagree with this. I think we can all hug and sing Kumbaya and say we're going to make safe AIs, but wishing doesn't make it true, folks. All it takes is one person anywhere, some kid in rural Canada, whatever, to build an AI that runs out there on some decentralized substrate that you can't turn off, that starts to accumulate wealth, and you can't turn it off. So it's much more than just a tool. It's a company with rights, if you want it to be, and this is dangerous territory. I don't have an answer in the near term of what to do. I hope we can have laws that slow this down, but to say that we're going to be open and hug and have transparent, safe AI, that's a mirage. It really is, in my view. We can use that to help slow it down, but that's definitely not the long-term solution.
Is there like a potential kill switch?
Sorry?
Kill switch. Do we have any potential to turn it off? Any idea?
All you need is one person to build an AI without a kill switch, and then it doesn't matter, right? Like, we have to get past these mirages of the Kumbaya mirage, right?
Well, my opinion that, of course, AI can affect our society, and we could make lots of mistakes. And what you mentioned, I think, could be an error or made intentionally. But what I would like to say is that all these fears that there will be a doomsday, that there will be some super intelligent AI somehow emerging out of all this work, that would be so much more intelligent than human, that would rule human race, or even decide that they don't need humans. That's basically impossible. That's a sort of a fantasy, science fiction fantasy. But if you look into the numbers, that's not possible. And the reason is that fundamental behind this whole thing is the idea that AI can explode. And the explosion of AI is that at some point you have like a computer with some AI, and it becomes so smart that it can improve itself. It has access to internet, to all the information. It becomes smarter and smarter and smarter. And every time it's exponential process. So in every cycle, it's even much smarter. And then soon enough, it just whooshes by our intelligence, zoom, and it's right there. And then it's in comparison to us, it's like us to an ant or a fly. That's mathematically impossible, because intelligence cannot be just, it's not a result of some accumulated energy that just needs to be released. All intelligence that we have seen all these examples, is a result of intensive interaction with the environment and getting feedback and learning. And there is no other way. There's no way to become intelligent without learning from the world and getting enough feedback. And to get enough feedback, you have to do enough interaction. So the world has to react to you. So there is no, just impossible to build something so smart in such rapid period of time. So there never will be explosion, AI explosion. Right? This follows, by the way, from some basic theorems of machine learning. So all the ideas that AI could explode is just not based on understanding really how.
I'm going to strongly disagree with that too. I really think we don't need a superintelligence in this way. It can be very mundane AI technologies that we had today or 10 years ago. If it starts to accumulate resources and have this exponential growth in terms of resources, that is super dangerous, right? And you know, we could have another conversation about whether you can manifest dynamical systems that are intelligent in some way, whether or not that can live in things other than flesh and blood meat bags. And I'm sure we disagree there, but we don't need to go to that right now. I'm saying, like, with today's technology, with nothing magical at all, we should be worried today.
So one of the most dangerous things of the world are viruses and bacteria. They killed millions of people over centuries. So it's not a sophisticated intelligence, it's not a lion, yes, it's not a dolphin, it's not even ants, and they kill you a lot. I really recommend the books by William Hartling because he goes through all these steps. He speaks about a Google-like company who was developing an NLP AI, which is creating self-awareness, so the typical way it's coming out there. But then he also speaks about the system that a kid is writing on a blockchain a virus which is attacking systems, taking in the source code, optimizing with the source code, and is iterating all the time until it's growing exponential. So from a virus, intelligence forms is coming too. So a certain and so on. But I want to come to a different point, more about the consequences. And you mentioned this before. So Yuval Harari, and I have no clue if I pronounce him right, he spoke in his book Homo Deus about the useless class. Artificial intelligence, robotics, automation, they will create a useless class of humans. So a class of humans, he says, which will not be needed anymore. It's not that they are unemployed, they are unemployable. So my question A is, do you see this will happen, that we will have a whole class of people we don't need for society anymore? And if so, what do we do with them? How can we find a solution that everyone is valuable for society, which does not mean he has to work? And we start with you.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't go to the point that there will be a useless group of people, right? I think it's a way that people have to do different things, right? So a lot of stuff that we today do in front and back offices by today can be replaced, and it's happening, right? Your usual insurance agents that takes phone calls, fills out form, nobody needs that in the future, right? So the question is how do you embrace that? Similar like you've done with the introduction of factory lines and with digitalization going forward, right? So you need a different leverage model, and that also means you need a different educational system because people actually have to do higher quality work to actually be and remain relevant. Because I don't think finding an economic model where still everybody gets some type of money on the bank doesn't solve the problem, because people need to do something, right? So if they just sit at home, they go nuts. So
what can you do which does not mean you have to go out and get a salary? What else can be there in life? For you, for example.
Yeah, right. Maybe it's not about money, but having something meaningful to do, right? So I mean, there must maybe shift, but still, you always need something that is tangible for you to do, regardless of the payment that you receive, right? So just fixing the salary problem doesn't really address.
So you want to keep people busy.
Yeah, right. I mean, I forgot who did the quote, right? Today it's like if you can describe what you are doing, you're in threat of being replaced. And that's why I like what I do, because I can't describe what I'm doing. But it's reality, right? And I think it needs to be tackled now centrally, actually, in the educational systems and going forward.
Good. Jens.
So I think I agree to most of what you said. I think that technology in the history of mankind has always, through technology, has created jobs that are more fulfilling that are safer, that are more fun, that reduce work time. And if you compare the workload that a typical person has today to what they used to do like 100 years ago, that has reduced as well. So I think the trend will continue. The question will be, are we on an exponential curve? And if you're on an exponential curve, if you look upwards, everything looks pretty vertical. If you look downwards, everything looks fairly horizontal. So the thing is, how do you deal with that? And I think in some jobs, yes, there will be in some job categories, yes, there will be job losses. And the question will be, how do you reskill people? How do you motivate them to find a new job? And this process in itself is also nothing that we haven't seen before. Just in November on weekly magazine Der Spiegel in Germany, we saw the cover page with an industry robot and a worker, and the title was called "You're Fired." So, technology replacing a typical worker. Interestingly, 37 years ago, in '73, there was a fairly similar cover on the same magazine with exactly the same situation. So the model hasn't changed. The robot looked a little more antique than the November 2016 one, but the question hasn't changed. And in the meantime, in those 37 years, many jobs that were killed, if you want to use that negative word, from '73 to today, have been generated. My job, your job, maybe all of our jobs, and probably the majority of the jobs that you all are doing today had not been invented in 1973. So if we look forward and say, what is technology going to do with my job in the next 10 years? What is machine learning going to do with my job? Many people will have to say, we don't know, because the jobs have not been invented yet. So we saw in one of the talks, we saw some jobs that will be created through, like in an A classification trainer or UX designer. So some of these jobs that hadn't been invented just a few years ago. So there will be dramatic changes on the workforce, but I really feel that the constant need for education and reskilling people is going to be fundamental to make people happy and keep them in a job that is fulfilling, and find new things for them. But I'm optimistic.
Trent.
Your last sentence caught what I'm going to be expanding on, and that is fulfilling. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? How many people have jobs where it's actually hitting the top level of self-fulfillment of their full potential, right? So many jobs are the mundane ones, just around basic survival, et cetera, right? So I think as a goal, we should try to say, can we maximize the number of people that actually get to be fully fulfilled? And at the same time, make sure that, obviously, therefore, feed themselves. And jobs are one potential path, but it's sort of a means to an end. So I think actually that there's potentially other ways where AI and blockchain both are automation technologies, automating the leaf nodes, automating the internal mechanics, where that can actually bring massive efficiencies to society, right? So think about like how healthcare is administered and other government programs where the government is like 25 or 50% of the GDP. This could probably be 1/10 or 1/20th the cost if you go fully electronic, et cetera. Estonia is a wonderful example of this. So, and imagine we have other efficiencies that are squeezed out. Then overall, this is actually money that's existing in the ecosystem that could actually be directed towards people to just kind of do what they want. Future Star Trek economies, et cetera, they don't have work per se. You can do a job if you want. So, I'm sympathetic with ideas of universal basic income. I don't know if it's a full solution, but it's cool. And that has actually shown, for example, 3x entrepreneurship. So if people have UBI, there's actually a 300% increase in the amount of companies being started. So people go for things that are self-fulfilling. I think this is the near term, and it can extend to sort of the crazier singularity-ish scenarios too. It's all around fulfillment of the self as well as the civilization.
So before I ask you, so from here I hear self-fulfilling and finding your passion and doing it. From you both I heard getting a new job, which is not existing. I say this on purpose because in the English language is not precise. In German you say Beruf, which is coming from Berufung, which means you do not take a job, you take something which you really like to do because you feel you want to fulfill this. And the German language is a little bit more precise there. They say, well, this is my job, or this is meine Berufung. Yes, and there you already have this. So, now to you, Danko.
So first, I agree with all that. But I think there's a bigger umbrella to reach that and even make it better. And that's that we will have to improve our democracy. Historically, with the development of civilization, with the development of technology, with the development of richness of a society, also the democracy tended to improve in the society. There's some variations, of course, but generally that's the case. And democracy, what we have today, is not the end of the story. It's a technology, if you wish, something that also can be improved, can be done better, even in combination with the technology that we have with internet and AI and so on. We can make much better decisions, quicker decisions. People can vote quickly. There's no reason to go to polls really today anymore. And we can improve a democracy in a such way that all these unemployed people, all these people who may not be able to find a job, may not they may want to do sports or do art or do something else, that they have a voice in the society, such that they organize all together with all the different interests, a society that works well for everybody. We don't have today's democracy is pretty good, but it's not really enough for that new economical situation that we see. So I think we will need to improve the democracy. That will somehow greater pressure to improve democracy will come. Maybe there may be a short period of social unrest, just by looking historically. I'm not seeing it, but historically looking, that's how things have evolved. A short period of social unrest, but things said, okay, let's do it that way, and then we'll have a higher level, a better level of democracy where people will decide, even these unemployed will have stronger say in how the wealth will be distributed that's been created from all this AI and technology. That's my vision and hope that it's going to work that way.
So I just had an idea. I ask everyone, please to stand up if you have a task where you get paid for it. Yes, so if you have anything you do, like a job or something, and you get a salary, you get paid for it, please stand up for a minute. It's late, so it's good to move a little bit.
People sit down, right?
Well, entrepreneurs maybe can sit, or who's not getting paid, that's fine. Well, some people have... No, I don't want to go on this very... It's fine. So everyone who, if you would not get paid anymore, you would go and do it, and no one pays you anymore. Sit down if you would not do it, if you would not continue to do it.
I mean...
No, you don't get money, and you still... Would you do the same thing you do every day if you would not get money for this?
If you love a job, keep standing.
Yes.
But you still have enough money for living.
No, the thing is... Well, your alternative would be Hartz IV. Huh? So those who are standing, they are the lucky ones. No, they are the lucky ones because they have found something they would do without the money, and because they do it with all the passion and love, they get paid for it on top of it. And this is what I experience with entrepreneurs, for example, and that's why I believe if people would not have the basic needs anymore, depending on their job, they would find more happiness in what they do. So this was an experiment for us to see. Thank you. So, because I have an idea where I want to go with this, and I took it from all your talks, and Martin Spindler, he mentioned this too. I want to speak about socialism and capitalism in the combination of technology. I was asked on a panel or on a talk that, or other ways, the people who own the algorithms, they get rich. Let's take it's the shareholder of Amazon, it's the shareholder of Google, of Facebook, and so forth. They get rich because these algorithms earn a lot of money. Facebook is the largest media company of the world with a very, very much smaller percentage of employees than all the media companies used to have before. Facebook and the other media companies are generating more revenue and more earnings, but with less employees. So working for a company is not benefiting to society the same as it used to be because less people earn salaries, so less people pay taxes and less people have something to consume. So more money is distributed, what we call the top 1%. I'm a venture capitalist on purpose because I want to be part of this. Yes, that's why I do it, one reason. But how do you see this movement that these who own the algorithms, they generate the money and they are not even DAO, you know, they are not even run by themselves, it's still that people own it, versus that we, on the other hand, with less people who earn something, and that this will, and we have seen this, Piketty wrote in the 21st Capital that the gap is increasing again. The only reason why the gap was down was Second World War. Because of the World War, the rich lost a lot of property and production and so forth. So the gap is increasing. The rich are getting richer and the rest stays. And one reason is technology leads to monopolies. Monopolies are owned by fewer people. So what are your thoughts to this point?
So, 2 comments. First, I hope that we will start an optimistic part of the discussion or after this question.
But I don't see
it's been very dystopic so far. Because I really think that there's a lot of opportunity in all these technologies, and there's a lot of good for society. And if you're a venture capitalist, you will also know that for startups today, it has become very easy to join the game and to generate revenues. I mean, in fact, many of the startups, hopefully some of the successful startups that will get into your portfolio, are running on hardware that is provided by Microsoft or Amazon or our company. They run program interfaces for their applications that run on any of these players' technology. It has become so incredibly easy to create a company. We can have an idea today on this panel, and we can have a website set up with payment systems, not using any of our own engineers, just by using programming interfaces. And you know, after the second glass of wine tonight, we can have a website, our product up and running. This wasn't possible 20 years ago. So it has become incredibly easy to create something on the internet. And it has dramatically leveraged the playing field. Everybody can contribute, and anybody can use the same technology that the biggies, the big companies like us, are providing. So, and there's great examples. There's a great startup here in Berlin, IM, who created photo software. Right? So they have a love and passion for photography. So they created machine learning algorithms that in the beginning were based on Google Photos machine learning algorithms. So they used our program interfaces, but they said that's not enough for us. We want to be better than Google Photos. We want to be better than Google. We want to beat the big guys. So they added their own secret sauce, and they created creativity factors and beauty factors. So now their software can detect whether a photo is beautiful or creative. And yes, that combined technology is, for the moment, better than we are. And we love this. We love this because it also challenges us to get better as well. What I'm trying to say by that is it's not true that only the big guys can win. Anybody can win, and this is the fantastic development of the technology developments of the last 25 years. And I've seen this personally in my business life. I know when I started my professional career, I was working for a publishing company, and when we tried to set up the first websites, it was terrible because we had to order machines, physical machines, and they had Sun Microsystems, they had 3 months delivery time. So by the time the idea was finished so that we could say, well, now have the budget, we now can hit the let's go switch, it took 3 months for the machines to arrive. Then we had to get administrators to set up the system. So by the time the website was actually up and running, probably 4 or 5 months would pass. And in the example that I just described, we can do the same thing today at no cost. And by the way, if the model scales, if we get enough users for your idea, for your app or your website, you just add more space to your Amazon cloud storage or Google or wherever you are.
You speak here about entrepreneurship. It's easier and cheaper to be an entrepreneur today.
Absolutely, yeah.
I agree. Asking, who is an entrepreneur in this room? Just raise your hand. Okay.
And so, who believes it's easier to be an entrepreneur today than it was, let's say, 15 years ago?
And I agree with this, yes. By the way, statistics is if you're one of the first 100 employees of Google, you earn 99% more likelihood that you get to be a millionaire than when you're CEO of your own company. So the statistics is interesting. If you join a tech company early, it's less risk with more return, by the way. So it's I learned that entrepreneurship is a lot of self-fulfillment. Yeah? So the thing is, not everyone can be an entrepreneur. It's easier today, but not everyone has. I see it. I look at 1,000 deals a year, and we do 10 investments, and I would say 90 investments get, or 90 companies get money from others, but 19, let's say 90% of the teams will never reach a point that they get funding by investor.
Yeah, but you also know as a venture capital company that this is an entire ecosystem, right? So if you look at this conference today, where there are entrepreneurs, and yes, most startups fail. Probably this is a good thing, because it stimulates the entire ecosystem, but it's not only those few people that get lucky to create a startup that is super successful and gets a great exit, it's an entire ecosystem, right? So you have people that run event spaces like this. There's people that drive food trucks. There's an entire industry next to the startup ecosystem. So for every one job in the high-tech industry, which agreed is well paid, there's probably 4 or 5 jobs in adjacent industries. So the entire system is driving the economy in a very, very positive sense. And there's many studies that prove exactly that. So it's not only a few people that are winners.
I think there's one other positive thing that's happening. So just to give an example of something that's negative right now, well, like several hundred years ago, the corporation was invented, right? And at the time, the investors and maybe the founders would own all the shares, right? And that would benefit them, but it wouldn't benefit the employees. It wouldn't benefit the community that's using the product or whatever, right? But especially with the rise of the 90s and even beforehand, stock options became really a big thing. And then the employees would be able to share in the benefits, the winnings of the corporation. And this was great because it aligned the incentives of the overall, of everyone in the company, right? But the users have still been the losers, right? Obviously, there's quotes like, if you aren't paying, then you are the product. And this is actually a problem with some of the existing models that are out there, right? And yes, there's other ecosystems that emerge, but if I'm a user of Facebook, then Facebook is making a lot of money off of me. Now, what's exciting is that we went from people at the top owning everything to having the employees having the stock options. But now I think there's a whole new trend from the world of blockchain of tokenized ecosystems. And what this means is that the users get tokens as well. So as this ecosystem grows in value, not just the founders of it, and not just the people building the tools of the infrastructure, but actually the users themselves are getting a value. It's a positive sum game, a rising tide that lifts all boats. And this is really wonderful because then, in some next-gen Facebook or Google or otherwise, as that thing takes off and grows, the users, the adopters, are actually sharing in the benefits overall. So it's a broader spread of the wealth across more. And I think that's super exciting. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So if I would look in a history book, what I try to translate in my words is a mixture between capitalism, ownership, and by the entrepreneur, and leadership by the entrepreneurs, in combination with a form of socialism, because everyone else is an owner too. Everyone else is participating in it.
Yeah.
But
in this case, you don't
by
even
technology.
You don't even need a company, like everyone has tokens in this ecosystem, but some of the early people get more tokens, but as you come along, more and more people get tokens, so everyone gets to participate.
What can you do with these tokens?
What can you do? It becomes the currency for services. So probably the most modern recent example is Ethereum, right? So they raised $20 million 2 years ago. Now that's a $9 billion ecosystem. And not only have the founders and initial developers been benefiting from this, but everyone has been building apps on top, as well as the users and the proponents of the ecosystem, everyone. So there's been a big rise in the overall wealth. And what's cool is they're taking that money and they're reinvesting it to build. So this community is growing, growing, growing. And it's this sort of flywheel of $9 billion.
And what is you always have to put, if we take money today, it's just a way of exchanging energy. Yes, you work, you get cash for it, you give it to someone else, and he invested cash to make a bread and is selling you the bread. What is then the form of energy you put in? How do you gain these tokens? What do you have to do to get a token so you can trade it?
There are exchanges. So the main token in Ethereum is something called Ether. In Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin, etc. And there are third-party exchanges that you can go and exchange Ether for dollars or euros.
But then you still need to have a job to get dollars to trade them into
Well,
tokens.
but that's one way, but there's other ways you can earn it. So there's other ecosystems, things like Steemit and so on, where when you do a blog post, you get Steem tokens. And then you can exchange these Steem tokens for Ether or for dollars or whatever. So basically there's proof of human work that you actually get rewards in return. This is super valuable and actually points to sort of a rewiring of society at a fundamental level that actually is much more inclusive of everyone on an economic level. And it ties together super well with AI and whatnot too, as you might imagine. So.
So, Danko, how do you, and if I may say this, you're one here, I mean, we're all very Western people here special, yes, and we spoke about this. You grew up also in a system which was not Western, yes, you grew up in Eastern Europe, yes, so you have the experience of different systems too. So how do you see the trend that capitalism is getting stronger because technology is in the hand of less? But then we have people like Andrea Nahles who want to give more free money to those who are not in the system anymore, who don't benefit to it. Like, both happens at the same time, I feel.
Yeah, so it's true. I had experience of communism to see how this economy works. Actually, my father was entrepreneur within a communism, which was a funny thing. And of course, the capitalism that came afterwards. So what I have observed is the following, that the society as a whole makes best progress when you have such a situation that people don't get too much entrenched in the power, whatever power they achieve. So if a company gets really big and powerful and has all this position, it's sort of an entrenched position. You're like there, like Google. It's really hard to shake Google. If you have your, your little shop in a busy street, it's your shop, you're entrenched. You're pretty safe with your business. It's really hard to take you out of there. For every entrepreneur, that's the goal. For every startup, it's a goal. Like you either get bought, or you actually find your position. But a really productive society makes a good balance between this, how strongly you can keep this position, and how good chances are for these others down, let's call them down, that want to also go and find positions. What was the problem of communism was that, you had positions that were fixed, they were, locked, it didn't work. If you go into capitalism too much to the extreme, you would have the same problem. If you completely regulate such that no one can go up, it's just like whoever has the power stays there, you will turn off the growth of the society, the growth of the economy, the quality of life. And that was like the case in early capitalism or during feudalism and this part. So what really makes society rich is this flow. And this flow is possible with this balance. You have to have a possibility to go up, otherwise there's no motivation, there's no incentive, there's no... but once you get up, it shouldn't be too safe. Because others, you should be susceptible to challenges. And if society can do these things well, then we are just going to go really, really, really well. And that's the history. The countries that did really well were the times when that really worked well. That was after the Second World War, as you mentioned.
You want to say something, Brian?
I mean, honestly, it's really hard to assess because there are a lot of trends, technology-driven ones, which affect these types of models. So you might have those where you say, okay, AI is taking our jobs, but then you have others like share economy. You have basically now a new appreciation of handcrafted goods around the globe via platforms like Etsy that gives people a very broad market based on technology. So and in these actually, let's see how they level out, and that's going to be interesting, right?
Yeah, and also, being the incredible optimist that I am, I really think that there's so many positive effects for our society through technology. I mean, if you think about some of the projects that many companies, including ours, are experimenting with in the area of medicine, right? If you can treat diseases in a better way, just because you crunch very large numbers of data, large amounts of data, and you find patterns that can help you determine, can you fight a disease, or can you fight being sick in general. If you take real big aims at addressing very large humanity challenges, that's a really positive effect for society. If you think about one of the big projects that we've been working on that we believe the society benefited is access to information, right? So our search engine is now providing better access to information so that anybody can find almost anything that is written somewhere on the web. That's great. We're still working on it. It's still not perfect, and we still continue to work on that. And there's so many other really positive things. You think about sticking in the medical area. There was some really great research progress on identifying X-rays with machine learning. So now you can help doctors in developing countries. You may not have enough doctors, but you may have sufficient technology, so you can take a scan, send the X-ray to some machine through some programming interface, and get a diagnose, probably as good, if not better, than you have a doctor on site. So you can really help address a lot of medical problems worldwide, and there are many use cases. We talked about the self-driving car in one of the talks. 93% of accidents, of fetal accidents in worldwide are through human error. So if you can bring that number down just because you add some self-driving vehicles, whoever produces them, whoever owns them, whatever business model you run through that, independent of whether that's an existing car manufacturer or new players in the market, that's a great benefit to society. If you can travel in traffic faster or safer, that's fantastic for society. And I think there's so many positive use cases that make life also simpler, not only safer, but simpler. And you think about how you use your mobile phone every day. There's so many applications from our company, from many other companies that make your life a little easier every day. And this is what we are very passionate about.
I guess we all agree. I mean, we're all in the technology field because we believe it's better for humankind. I'm fine with this. So before I give it open to the panel, so if you have a question, think about it for a second. I have 2 short questions, just short answers. First, do you own Bitcoins?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay, good. For those who own them, last year, 400% an increase.
Yeah, so I said invest.
Yeah, it's an invest. It's an interesting return. Depends when you have entered. What I expect it from you. So, other questions. We spoke about this. Technology will make you healthier, living longer. The life expectancy of newborn kids today is 100 years. When I asked my grandmother, who's still living, I asked her, like, what is the biggest thing you are happy for the last 86 years? She said, the progress in medicine. All these cars, all these computers, the progress in medicine. I'm living already today 30 years longer than I was supposed to when I was born. So, question is, if you can choose, how old would you like to be? Because we spoke, you mentioned this, but yet give just a number. What's coming in your mind? If you can choose when you think, okay, today it's sufficient. Just
150.
150. Wonderful.
There's no number, I guess.
Unlimited? Like,
No, I
like
don't say unlimited.
vampire?
My life has to be fulfilling, so it doesn't really matter if you have a life that is 200 years or whatever the number is, if it's not fulfilling. So
But you as a human, you always want to live, even people who are unhappy, most of them, until they make it. Okay, you don't know. You?
Actually, my grandfather, he lived to the age of 94. He had a very fulfilling life, many adventures. But about 6 months before he passed away, he was ready to move on. And so I deeply acknowledge when people are ready to move on. And I also reconcile, though, with I don't want to die when I don't want to die. So I agree with you. I don't know what my number is.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to live forever, but I just don't want to die when I don't want to die. So hopefully 1,000, maybe 10,000 years. I don't know.
Okay, 10,000, like in the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, by then, though, it'll probably be some random, crazy intelligence that's just me as origin, but it'll be completely different. Who knows?
Okay, now we have 150. We don't know yet.
10,000.
Up to 10,000. I mean, you had kids. You want to see your kids and your grandkids, I hope, or?
I'm afraid I wouldn't want to live much longer than 100 years.
Okay.
I have a feeling that due to the very property of our own, how our intelligence works, the way how we accumulate knowledge, we process it differently at older age. And it's not because we get old, it's because we get smarter. And it becomes less fun over time. In a sense that the times flies faster when you're older, and it's not the reason. It's not the reason for that. That's like we don't know how to deal with that. We have so much more knowledge that we perceive the world differently. It's just nothing's happening compared to the little kid, like when it discovers, you know, a little toy. That's so immense for their knowledge. There's nothing that can impress as much us maybe too. It has to be like incredibly great. And
I have a question for you. What if it's about the deltas of information? You've already, you know, grokked most information in the world. So every new piece, it's a small thing. It's only a small piece of information content that you're getting. But what if you could keep getting that same large chunks of information content that you got as a child?
Yeah, that's what you would have to. You would have to go like explore other planets to get the same excitement as my daughter gets now.
It's a very big question that probably deserves a whole conference.
Exactly.
I mean, I think everybody would probably agree. You know, especially if you take a different, the context is important. If I ask you now, you know, you're young and healthy and everything's fine. If you fast forward 40 years and you're like, I don't know, 75, and you know you feel the first signs of decay, maybe your answer will be completely different. And you would say, okay, if someone could give me another 5 years and fix my knee and my back and whatever small trouble I have, yeah, I would take it. And I think everybody would also agree that it's fantastic to see, you mentioned medical advances, it's fantastic to see the medical advances in the last years. To give you one personal anecdote, 3 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And at the time, you know, everything's fine. We're all through this. It's all fantastic. But at the time, she was, you know, looking up on the internet, you know, with my specific type of tumor, what do the statistics look like, right? So she's very analytical, so she couldn't resist to research, and then you see numbers and percentages, and I say, well, the good news is, look at the statistics. You know, the statistics are from studies that are 5 years old. The data for the studies is probably another 2 to 3 years old. And that even in that time when the statistics have been created and the research has been created, science has advanced. So now you're done through your treatment. If something happens again, chances are that medical advancement is much further than it was whenever the first researchers started working on your statistics. So I think everybody will agree that it's fantastic to see these great examples of medical advancement, and many people with the same diagnosis only 50 years ago may have had a different outlook in their life. So I think everybody is probably very happy about this. Whether I would answer the question, do you want to live forever? I probably don't.
So if you want to have the thought experiment too, I recommend the book by Charles Stross called Accelerando. It's a pretty good book, and within one book you have 3 generations. You come to the point that life is getting so fast that you can, first you have cognitive agents, so you can live one more than one life at the moment. Yes, you can multiply your personality and live your whole childhood again with different iterations to figure out what way your parents could have been doing the best job and what school was best so forth. So you can, within hours, you can live centuries of life, because it's all in your mind. So I agree that time is exponential, everything is getting faster, more informations. So life in 10 years can feel more intense than it maybe feels today, and life used to be slower 100 years ago. So I agree sometimes, so it's hard to say.
I think it's really useful to point out too, like, you know, people can disagree whether or not we will end up on some silicon or post-silicon substrate, but consider for a possibility that we do, right? Well, there is a vast space of possible intelligences, right? And the intelligence that is a current human intelligence is only one tiny pinprick in that vast, vast, vast space, right? And when we have more flexible substrates, then we'll have the opportunity to adapt our intelligence, the shapes of our intelligences to much broader things, to merge in and out with AI, intelligences, whatever. We don't really know, right? So, and we have to consider that too, beyond, like, if we say going on from 100 to 200 years, given that we could be exploring different shapes of intelligences, then that radically transforms. In Accelerando, for example, the protagonist, he actually changes himself into a flock of birds for 700 years. And then his girlfriend leaves him because he's a bird brain, literally. So the point is, though, like, it's potentially like malleable, right? And this, of course, is just one possible scenario, but it's actually potentially an exciting one, right?
Oh, this brings me to another question, I'm sorry. If you could choose the form of intelligence of AI, would it be a dog or a cat?
I'm a dog person.
Dog person?
I can't decide. I like cats and dogs.
Frankly, I like the personalities of pigs.
Pigs, okay.
Yeah, I grew up on a pig farm. They're interesting.
Dog. I'll
Dog.
go for dog.
The thing is with cats, I always have this discussion with cat owners. The question is, are you the owner of the cat or is the cat the owner of you? Yes, and the same is about AI. Or do you want the AI to be like your dog, always walking behind you and always doing what you want most of the time and knowing what they didn't do? So, last minutes, and I didn't allow a lot of questions today because I like a TED style, so I like it if the speakers speak and the questions will be done outside of it. But now I give you the floor if you want to. So who wants to ask something for the panel? Otherwise, it means we have one question there. Okay, please, there is a microphone. Turn it on.
Hello? Yes. You spoke earlier about meaning, that what we do needs to be meaningful, and that even beyond the point where we might be replaced by technology, artificial intelligence, there might be something that we could do. What do you think, also from a psychological perspective, happens to us not subjectively, but more general, when we lose the status of being the tip of the spear? Because for the last 5 million years or so, we were the biggest and best creation of this planet, and we were very aware of it. What happens when we don't have that feeling anymore?
Please.
I can try. Yes, I'm a psychologist here, so. Well, yes, we have been on the top, and historically we had a few ego shots as an entire species. Because long ago we thought we were much more on the top. Right? We were like equal to gods. We were in the center of the universe. Then we learned, well, we are not in the center of the universe. We are on some sort of periphery. Then we thought also the Earth is a, how did it go? First we discovered that the Earth was running around the sun, and then we discovered that there's a bigger universe and so on. Then the evolution comes. We were not coming from God-like people, but we were actually not so distant from chimpanzee. 98% shared DNA with them. So we had got these hits, right? And then on the other hand, what we have, none of us here is on top of everything. Each of us is a minority, or which term did you use, in compared to something else, right? You know, maybe you're a great entrepreneur, but you probably don't sing excellently. So you look at people, wow, how well they sing, or do something else. So we are used to that. We are quite used to that, and we'll be, you know, it will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that too, right? There are for everyone, there's somebody that's smarter typically, right?
Exactly.
So, and I think that's somebody that, I mean, most people actually would acknowledge too, right? Yeah. And the other point is, if there is something like super intelligence and you accept that it's smarter than yourself, I think it's more around who's in control of it, right? So if you have a super smart system that can excel your own capabilities, that's all fine as long as you're in proper control of it, right? So the thing can play better chess than me. So I have the impression it might be smarter than me, but I'm pretty sure I'm in control of it, right? So I don't have any type of sense of threat.
Now, here's another anecdote. I mean, to some degree, some of the tools we're already using today are in the same category, right? So if we were sitting over a beer or a glass of wine and we would talk about, I don't know, in Germany soccer is very popular. We talk about soccer, and you talk about this great player, how he scored the second goal in that particular game. Typically, in a typical bar situation, it will take probably 45 seconds. If we would disagree whether it was the second half or the first half of the game where he scored the 2-0, it would take 45 seconds for any of us to use their mobile phone to find out on any search engine, there's many, on any search engine to find out who actually scored and when that was. So we already have the tools that extend our brain's capacity, right? So it's a tool like a calculator 25 years ago. We now have different tools, and they will advance over time. I personally don't believe, and this is my personal view, not necessarily Google's. I don't really find it so important when and if and whether singularity will happen. it's important that society deals with the challenges and the questions that come around that if technology advances quickly. And there may be the unspoken, unthinkable thing that singularity never happens. Who knows? Maybe it takes another 1,000 years. Maybe it never happens. I think we need to be responsible as end users, as companies, as individuals, as society, to deal with the progress that technological advancements bring. This is nothing new. We have seen that with many technologies. And I think the underlying thing that is true for everything is the ability and the willingness to change. Change has always been taking place in society, not only since we have machine learning and artificial intelligence. And Darwin's quote is still true, right? It's not the strongest species that will survive. It's the one that is most adaptive to change. And this is true for companies, this is true for end users, this is true for society. We will expect to change.
That's a wonderful closing. So before we close, because it's people are, two last questions, short ones. First is, can you imagine to leave Earth in your lifetime?
Imagine or
imagine
find
and
it
then,
realistic?
No, first imagine, second, would you do it?
Sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Can you imagine to leave Earth in a lifetime? We spoke about one way is to conquer space, because otherwise we get bored, or we have to flee
At least
from
one
AI.
of my copies will. At least one of my copies will.
One of your copies, good.
I would love to do it, but
Would
come back, not
Yes,
live for
okay.
good. If I could afford a trip to moon and back, I would do it.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm adventurous too. I join you on your trip.
Let's go.
okay,
Yeah, I would be in too, right? Leaving aside all the details that come with it, maybe.
good.
I've got my 4-year-olds excited about moving to Mars, actually, so...
Oh, it's the Wild West out there. Yes, it will be. Why not? Okay, then now, last question. Do you believe we live in a simulation?
I think
No.
it's high probability, and I love that actually people are trying to scientifically test this right now, seeing if there's computational shortcuts that are being taken at the lowest level.
So, Danko, you said no, right?
I said no.
High probability?
Yeah.
No.
No?
No, I don't think so.
No, you don't think so? Well, hopefully we won't find it out. Thank you very much for this. Yes? Danke, Achim.